being hypnotized by hypnotherapists is different than self-hypnosis and different than meditation. I think self-hypnosis is more like meditation than being hypnotized is. So we're all different roads up the same mountain. There's a recent study that's showing that meditation for 30% of the people is actually harmful because you're putting yourself in a suggestible state. But if you've got a negative state of mind, if you're in a fearful state, if you're already being suggestible to negative, and then you get more suggestible, all you're doing is reinforcing the suggestibility. You're also many times leaving yourself in an overly suggestible state. One of the main things that we do, we hypnotize people, but even more importantly than that is we dehypnotize. We take them out of hypnosis at the end. And that's what people aren't doing in meditation and even self-hypnosis sometimes. And they're leaving themselves in a suggestible, which is a vulnerable state. Coming out of hypnosis sometimes is a more important thing that we teach people how to do than just going into hypnosis.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Charmed Life Podcast. I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. This podcast is about magic, metaphysics, spirituality, and so many self-help, personal development, spiritual development topics. Today's podcast is a conversation with George Kappas. He is the director of the HMI College for Hypnotherapy, of which I am a graduate. This is a really awesome episode. George talks about so many phenomenal things, ways to what's going on with us right now, why we're feeling the way we are, what's going on with the stress levels we are dealing with, not just of late with everything that's been going on in the world, like in the last year, but what's been going on with us in the last 20 years and what we can do about it. So we do talk about hypnosis from many different perspectives, and we talk about so many resources that are available to you right now for free to help you to gain some of that wisdom and knowledge and mastery over what is happening in your life, in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit. So enjoy this conversation, and I will see you on the other side. Well, George, I am so excited to connect with you. Welcome to the Charmed Life Podcast. Thank you for shining your light here and, just being here to tell us all about hypnosis and the phenomenal, my listeners are probably sick of me talking about HMI College of Hypnotherapy. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, fun. Glad you asked me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I guess let's just start at the top, George. What is the work that you're doing now? You're the director of the school, and what other kind of work are you doing?
That's the thing is I do my little mental bank and I do my affirmations at night and my gratitude list. And I think the thing I repeat more than anything is how grateful I am that HMI gives me such a varied outlet for creativity. I get to do so many things, video productions, clinical work with clients, the supervision, the teaching, working with, other schools of psychology to bring in new ideas, television production. Just there's so many fun things that we do. We're even starting HMI radio. So it's just, they're really like, I don't know too many jobs that let you do so many fun things,
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like being the executive producer or CEO of a multimedia company, really, because
it really is. Yeah. Because we're doing so many things. And now that we're doing, an interactive distance learning program since COVID, we went interactive, and now we have students all over the world, and they're Zooming, and we're interacting with them in different time zones, and that's been fun experience as well.
Well, I'll bet some people, because I get this question every now and again, people saying, can you do hypnosis over Zoom? Or can you do hypnosis when you're not in the same room? And I mean, clearly it's yes, but do you see any difference or limitations in either way, in any way there?
I think so. I think there's some limitations. I think the limitations are more on the end of the therapist. I think the therapist would prefer to be in the room, to be able to, touch a shoulder, just to get that vibe. I think there's a lot of that provides a lot of information that even though you see them, it's not exactly the same. However, the pros outweigh the cons. when you're seeing people in person, you're limited to what, 7, 10, 15-mile radius in Los Angeles because of traffic and everything. And they got to come in. It takes 2 hours at least for a 1-hour appointment. It's so the range of that you open up with Zoom, meaning people, our interns are working people all over the world now, international people from different cultures. And it's just such a great experience for them. People from all over the country. We're getting hundreds of people for them to work with instead of tens. So I think the pros outweigh the cons. For the client, once their eyes are closed, it doesn't matter, right? Or they're not the ones using all that visual information. It's the therapist. For the client, I don't think it matters much. I think it's convenient. I think they're safe. I think some people open up more in their homes. And even on the phone, some people even do better by phone than Zoom because you're not looking at them, and so they feel they can emote more, and they don't feel like you're looking at their. So I think it's all about the therapist adapting to the environment.
Yeah, I agree. I think yes, and it's not, there aren't limitations for the client, for the person receiving it, and so many benefits because they could work with whomever they want. They see Joe Tabinella on a podcast, or they see you here, or something like. Well, actually, are you working? You're doing some clinical work still, are you?
Technically, no. I do work with some people, but I don't take new clients, and I really am. I'm enjoying sort of working with the interns and kind of being in like the third person in the room with them. That because it allows me to handle a lot more people. That way.
Right, to mentor. And so you also have an MFT license. How long have you been? Do you still see some of those, or has it been a while since you've been doing that work, or did you switch to hypnotherapy entirely at some point?
Well, see, I don't see them as any. I don't see any line separating them. It's just another tool in the toolbox. Whether it's relationships or personal stuff or whatever. It's not like, I'm a hypnotherapist today and I'm MFT tomorrow. It's just all mixed in there, and it's just therapy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned some of your personal practice. You mentioned mental bank and your prayer, and I think that's something that having a hypnotherapist, that I think that's a really important component to it, is to actually learn how to get that personal practice, because all of the things that we're talking about here really do fall in the realm of hypnosis or self-hypnosis, including mental bank, which we should actually explain what that is, because that's something that anyone can just go to the HMI website, get the book, watch the class, because there's so many self-help opportunities for free and on really low cost, because you could buy the mental health book, mental bank book, or do the subscription online, and it's really pretty affordable. So let's talk about mental bank. What's that, and how's that changed lives?
Okay, so just mymentalbank.com. It's a free seminar. It's a 2-hour seminar, and it explains, this self-help process, how to program your subconscious mind in 5 minutes a day. It's a practice, and I do it, and of course, thousands of people are doing it, and we feel it's really, really powerful, and it's just self-help, that they can learn. We explain exactly how it works. It's all based in subconscious behaviorism, which is what we study for 50 plus years. And so, we're happy that people are doing it. And in fact, a lot of our students say that's how they heard about us. They did the mental bank. They took the mental bank seminar free online. So we, and then got more interested in what else they could learn. So we definitely encourage people to do, mymentalbank.com. And, and that's sort of my, so we have a graduation each month. A group of people are finishing the program each month. A group of people are starting the program. So I meet with them at the beginning. I meet with them at the end, and I tell them on the way out, that you've got to be client number one. Anything you would suggest to one of your clients, you better be doing yourself. This is an energy business. People are going to feed off your energy, and if your energy is not clean, if you're not, doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but you got to be working and doing all of the tools that you're recommending to people, self-hypnosis, dream therapy, mental bank, seeing a therapist yourself, doing all of that stuff that we're telling our clients to do and teaching them to do. The diet, everything counts. Sleeping, eating.
Yes. I talk about it because I teach people how to open their intuitive abilities, and I teach all kinds of spiritual topics and meditation, helping people get that meditation practice, which meditation is self-hypnosis basically, or falls in the realm of hypnosis. And and people that I work with who I'm teaching to become like intuitive readers, it's your personal practice, your meditation closet is your workshop. Like the violinist who's going to be playing in, her practice room thousands of hours more than she's actually in concert. That's, yeah.
So there's, as you know, the American Hypnosis Association is associated with the college, and we have guest speakers. We've had them for 40 years, and we've, we have hundreds and hundreds of these recorded. So there's one that in the library that's a little bit old now, so people aren't as aware of it, but it's called Reverse Speech Technology. I don't know if you've heard.
Oh, yes, I saw that one. I love it. It's so cool.
But here's the takeaway. Here's my takeaway from that lecture. The theory is everything you're saying, if we were to record it and play it backwards, we would find hidden messages from your subconscious mind. It's a fascinating concept, right? But what's more fascinating, these messages are not random. These messages are subconscious commentary on what you're saying. It's almost like you can't suppress the truth. So if you're saying something that isn't genuine, your subconscious mind will say, yeah, I don't think so, or that's bullshit, or whatever. Or if you're saying something that is congruent, then your reverse speech will match your forward speech. They'll be congruent. So that's why I'm telling these people, listen, if you're not doing this and you're telling people, yeah, hypnotherapy is great, yeah, it can help you, but you're not using it, you're not applying the principles, they're going to feel a weirdness from you. They're going to feel that incongruency, that you're saying one thing, but your subconscious doesn't exactly agree with what you're saying. And so then they just don't get a good energy from you. So that's sort of a great way to look at, am I being congruent? Am I walking the walk? Do I feel healthy? Am I happy? Am I holding grudges? You know what I mean? Because you can't do that and be in the healing business.
That's so true. Is that available to the public?
Unfortunately, it's an American Hypnosis Association lecture for professionals. But by the way, reverse speech technology. He's all over YouTube. It's not exclusive to us. So that's John Oates is his name, and it's a great concept, and he has great examples. Of course, my favorite is the recording of President Bill Clinton, saying, "I did not have sex with that woman," and in reverse, he says, "I hate to say yes." It's just so interesting, and it seems like, that's how a subconscious would talk. It's just so interesting to me.
Yeah. And there's also one it's Marilyn Monroe singing a song, and he played it backwards, and you could hear, and it sounded like, I'm looking for a magic man, to something like about rescuing her. And it's like, wow, that really matches with what we kind of observe about her.
I didn't know about that one. I like that too. I know the car salesman one where he's telling him how great the car is. In reverse, he says, I am so full of shit. Yeah. It's like, wow.
And then there was one that was like a politician talking, like, I don't know if he was Republican talking about Democrats or something like that. And he said something like, dumb fucks, these are dumb fucks, in reverse.
Yeah. No, it's like, and what's interesting is that the concept that truth is unsuppressible. You can't suppress truth. It comes out one way or the other, either subtly or in an emotional feeling, but you can't suppress the truth. And then how society changing would it be if we had real-time stuff where you couldn't talk on the news, or you couldn't give a speech, you couldn't say anything without people getting what you really feel about. Like if you could no longer tell a lie. There was a Jim Carrey movie like that. Remember, Volvos, they're good, they're boxy, but they're good. Where you couldn't tell a lie. How would it change society? Yeah. So that's an interesting concept. Way off topic, but interesting.
No, but I think it's really what it's bringing to mind to me, though, is then how come we are deceived? When we're deceived in media, we're deceived in advertising, we're deceived in social media, and we're deceived by politicians. Those are some of the things that come up. I'm sure people are wondering, well, then if you can't tell a lie, so are you saying that I want to believe lies sometimes?
Well, I do think there's a confirmation bias that guides us through a lot of things, that we have a belief already. And then we put blinders on to anything that conflicts with that belief. And then we just notice all the things, the statements or whatever, the people that agree with our belief. And then that confirms, oh yeah, that belief's true because everybody says so, But we're putting blinders on to everyone who isn't saying so. So we are driven by, there's one way to look at it is there is no truth. It's all perception. It's all distortion. It's all beliefs. And what's another word for belief? Opinion, bias, prejudice. Those are all the same thing, in that I believe something and I'm blocking out anything that sort of, challenges that belief.
Yeah. And what with confirmation bias is getting more enhanced by algorithms now, because we're interacting so much. Most of
Yeah.
a lot of what we do is
it only shows you what it knows you already like, right? And it
Yeah.
just confirms and confirms. Right.
Yes. Yes.
I was we were having a discussion about hypnotic modalities in a lecture a couple of weeks ago. And I was telling, if you had to guess what somebody's political affiliation was, what would be the main factor that would guide your guess? And the answer is geographics. If you look at where they live, by county, you can guess probably with 90% accuracy what their political affiliation is. Now, what does that tell you? Why is there something in the water? Is it the ground, or is it just we're so suggestible to the people around us? We have evolved in villages and tribes, and we are suggestible to people around us, and they shape our whole world. And we forget that that's a really small group of people, that there's a whole lot of other people out there. And if we were just to move and live in another place for a year or two, we would actually change a lot of our opinions and our beliefs, because we're so suggestible to the people around us.
Suggestible to the people, the environment, because the environment is created by the people that are there. It's even just going on vacation. I notice it can really reset some things, how I'm running my thought scripts and everything. It really will.
Watching foreign movies where you're in a different culture, and you see they move at a different pace. They tell the story at a different pace. It's almost like you get a glimpse of their life in a different country, in a different culture, and you realize that it's not all about the way I do it. There's just all these different ways of looking at the world and living our life, and we don't see it because we don't get around much. And it's people more than anything, Tricia, because the worst thing that could happen to us in a tribe is that we alienate ourselves from the other tribe members and they kick us out. I mean, it's certain death. It's a bad death. It's by animals, enemies, starvation. We need them to like us. We need to be accepted. Alienation or rejection is one of the worst innate, probably DNA ingrained fears that we have. And then that's what's playing out in social media a lot too, is that it's so stressful when someone doesn't like my thing, because really in our DNA is, God forbid they kick me out of the tribe, I'm dead. I'm really dependent on these people.
Wow. And just the kids, you and I are old enough, we didn't grow up with that. Did your son grow up with social media? I don't even know how old he is.
Yeah, he did. And I remember consoling him, because they kicked him out of they shut down his MySpace because he violated, some rule. And it was like, basically they kicked him off the planet Earth as far as he was concerned. He was just dropped in the middle of the desert. I mean, he was inconsolable for days, because that was his world.
Yeah.
And just some algorithm or some executive pushed a button, and there was no arguing, there was no debating, there was no recovery.
What do you think the social media and the way that kids, young people are, well, all of us, but I'm more thinking about kids right now because of they're in the formative years of, that building the mind and building the way that we run our energy. What do you think social media is doing to suggestibility? Is it making them more suggestible or less in management of their suggestibility and their capacity to think on their own?
Well, I don't think, people are people. I think people are suggestible, and they always have been suggestible from caveman days till now. I think we're more suggestible to a screen, or more suggestible to things that we read and whatnot than, when I was a kid, it was in the baseball field, and you were suggestible to what someone would say or the jokes or whatever. I also think, there's a thing called, cultural evolution. Because there's so much information, I think cultural evolution is on hyperspeed, where things happen much more rapidly than they did in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, where things would happen, but it was by word of mouth. It just took a lot longer. Now word of mouth is instant. It's enormous. It spans the globe sometimes. So we're talking about rapid cultural change, which sometimes in and of itself is stressful. Any change is stressful. Before, it happened at a nice leisurely pace that we hardly noticed. Now it's happening so fast that some of us are going, I can't keep up. My opinions, my biases can't change fast enough to keep up with the world.
And, the body evolves very slowly. I remember my doctor told me one time, he was saying that, the diet that we eat now, of course, it doesn't really suit our bodies, because we still have an appendix and we haven't needed it for, I don't know what he said, 100,000 years or something. So
cultural evolution far outpaces biological evolution. They say if you took 100,000-year-old body and for some reason it was in the ice and it was fresh, and you put it right next to a recently dead person, and that you didn't have anything to tell you, like no clothes or hairdos, you could not tell the difference. Now, we haven't evolved enough to notice any change, but culturally, information-wise, it's night and day. It's exponential in that it's just speeding and speeding and speeding.
And even more in the last 20 years, really, it concentrated, it really focused and compacted. And I mean, that's really, it's impacting our bodies too, because I was going to say, if you pulled those two out of the ice, you could tell by the posture, probably, because the modern person would be like this, all hunched over.
I saw where they're all looking down at their phones, right? So the neck is changing. But
yeah, and it's not. We're not designed to do that, but the stress on the mind, it must be creating more stress then. All of that.
So here's the best example is 2020, right? Because I put out an article about COVID stress and what the isolation and the our society never has changed. It was almost like a 1-day change. Like we went from white to black in one day, where they said, shut it down, right? And stay home and lock it down. And of course, no one knew it was going to last a year or 18 months or 2 years. And the stress, the drug overdoses, the domestic abuse, the depression, the suicide. It's just people can't change that fast. They're just not designed to do that. And they totally lost control of their suggestibility. By the way, I did write a nice article about COVID stress. I think it's on our website, Hypnosis Study to You. But it's about, remember the news at first? I mean, you couldn't take your eyes off of the information was coming, and you tell me what's going to happen. Tell me what's going to happen, and it was, so you're like in a bombardment, you're in a hypnotic session for days, weeks, etc. And then add isolation to it. We are not made for isolation. That's not how we're wired. And it's just been almost really an unprecedented event in the last 100 years. And I think it affected us more this time than the 1918, because we had so much information, we had so much communication, we had so much contact, more than we did 100 years ago. Our worlds are so much bigger today.
Yeah.
And it's been a crazy, stressful year.
So let's talk about hypnosis that's good and hypnosis that's bad. Or, like you said, all of that stress basically put everyone in a constant hypnosis session. But we're talking about hypnosis as the solution as well, right? So
here's what I like to look at it both ways, okay? In other words, you can't have a problem without becoming suggestible to it first. Okay? So suggestibility creates the problem. And as hypnotherapists, we use suggestibility to solve the problem. Suggestibility creates the perception, and we use hypnosis to use their suggestibility to change the perception, because almost all problems are perception based.
Yeah.
And that perception's another word for, you have to be suggestible. You're seeing it a certain way. You're seeing it through a bias, through a lens of a belief that you've created. And that's what hypnotherapy does, is it changes that bias and changes that perception. And, you can look at things as good, and you can look at things as the same thing as bad. The same two kids in a family can have a totally different perception of their upbringing and their parents, because they're each perceiving it differently.
Yeah. And so it's that old adage, the way out is through. And it helps you with being in the process of managed and intentional hypnosis. Then you can take back the reins of your suggestibility.
That's the key, is that you go, okay, You've lost control of your suggestibility. You allowed yourself to be influenced by this and this and this, and they led you in a negative direction. Let's take control of that. Let's recognize that that's just suggestibility. Let's take it back and say, what would feel better? I think it'd feel better if it went in a positive direction. I think it'd feel better going this way, and I can learn the tools to take control of it and redirect it in a direction that serves me better, that makes me feel better, that keeps me motivated. Because becoming suggestive, you can be aware that there's bad things in the world, but you don't have to become suggestible where that's all you see and you become paralyzed and it becomes disabling and your depression takes over. That doesn't help you or anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
You can't get sick enough to make another person well.
Right.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, that's great, but how do I even do it? And HMI offers free hypnosis to the public.
So, and especially, so in COVID, we put out, we are offering free hypnosis sessions, private, on Zoom in the privacy of your home, with really qualified HMI interns and who work under supervision, and it's free. It's as many sessions as you need or want, and there's no cost to it. And there is just an application at hypnosis.edu/sessions with an S, like hypnotherapy sessions. So hypnosis.edu/sessions. And as long as you tell us what you're struggling with, and as long as we think it's something we can help you with, then we'll connect you with an intern, and we want you to experience it. And basically, hypnosis is natural, but you don't know how to do it. They didn't teach you that.
Yeah.
So we have people who are going to train you to recognize it, the tools to sort of get a hold of your suggestibility, and they're guides and they're coaches and they're educators, and they are trained to help you enter this state and then condition it so that you can learn how to do that yourself.
And that's so important, right? Again, back to the personal practice, so what is the difference? Do you see a distinction between self-hypnosis and meditation, or what do you think the qualities are that would differentiate these?
I think being hypnotized by hypnotherapists is different than self-hypnosis and different than meditation. I think self-hypnosis is more like meditation than being hypnotized is. There's a recent study that's showing that meditation for 30% of the people is actually harmful. And we've been saying this for a while, because what it is you're putting yourself in a suggestible state. I mean, they're all kissing cousins. They're all different roads up the same mountain. But you're putting yourself in a suggestible state. But if you've got a negative state of mind, if you're in a fearful state, if you're already being suggestible to negative, and then you get more suggestible, all you're doing is reinforcing the suggestibility. You're also many times leaving yourself in an overly suggestible state. One of the main things that we do, we hypnotize people, but even more importantly than that is we dehypnotize. We take them out of hypnosis at the end. And that's what people aren't doing in meditation and even self-hypnosis sometimes. And they're leaving themselves in a suggestible, which is a vulnerable state. And for every one positive thing in our environment, there's probably 9 negative things. And so we find ourselves feeling bad because we're becoming overly sensitive and suggestible to the negative. And so coming out of hypnosis sometimes is a more important thing that we teach people how to do than just going into hypnosis.
Mm-hmm. This reminded me of this friend, or is like a friend of a friend, years and years ago, and it's no one that I know now. And this person was studying meditation, and he was in a super bad mood, and he was like angry at his mom's boyfriend or something. And so he went and he's like, I'm going to go meditate. And he came back angrier because he just sat there.
I'm not trying to put down meditation.
No, I mean, I know. Yeah.
For 30% of the people, it's not recommended. It's like everything. There isn't anything that's for everybody at every time, right? And so you have to recognize that there are limitations, and that can be one of them. Here's an interesting, because people they don't realize when they come to us, they're in hypnosis most of the time. When they come to us, they go, what are you talking about? I'm not in hypnosis. So here's a great little tip. If you're feeling emotional about anything, you're in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that you're feeling something, you're in hypnosis, because that's what it is. It's a gateway to your feelings. People go, well, what's the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious? Here's just another easy way to think about it. It's a metaphor. From here up, that's your conscious. From here down, that's your subconscious. This is where you feel everything, And if you're in this part where you're feeling stuff, you're feeling emotional, then you're in hypnosis. If you're feeling pain, you're in hypnosis. Whatever it is, happy, sad, you are in hypnosis at the time, meaning you're suggestible, you're open, you're vulnerable to ideas, thoughts, and change and shifts in your perception.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, you probably do, Neville Goddard? He's passed now. He was a teacher and an author. No. Oh, you would probably love his work. He's an author and a teacher and a philosopher. And he has a book called Feeling is the Secret. It's 60 pages. It's really short. And
I like that kind of book, 60 pages.
Yeah, it's really, really hardy, really dense.
Hopefully big print and pictures.
Reader's Digest version. We'll make sure you get that one, George. But yeah, he's talking about feeling is the secret. You can feel toward you any state that you want, and that's the subconscious mind, which impresses upon the conscious mind in order to create the reality. And that's the big work there. And I want to just say that so far as meditation is concerned, what George is talking about is people don't know how to, they don't know how to self-hypnotize and they don't know how to meditate. And if you used a guide track that was, it's basically then having someone guide you in hypnosis. Then if you used a guide track to give you suggestions of positive imagery and feelings, but the issue is whether they wake you up too. That's true. They need to wake you up, or you can wake yourself up.
Putting you in. You're already in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're just taking you a little deeper. What main thing is to condition you to come out of hypnosis, and we give you a conditioned response. We use this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wide awake, right? And then that's something you can use on your own. All of a sudden you're feeling. And you go, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wide awake. And you trigger that conditioned response because it's not always a good thing to be suggestible. I'm not saying you should never feel, but you should be aware that you're vulnerable when you are. Here's another great tip. Because, we had so many people in such bad condition during COVID, which is still happening, just so overwhelmed, feeling so bad. Okay? And you're not a professional hypnotherapist. You haven't had this kind of professional training. You're not skilled at using this tool, but yet you are. So here's some tricks. Watch a positive movie because it puts you in hypnosis and it changes your state. Read positive books when you're reading, especially at night. Like if you're struggling with depression, the simplest prescription, read positive books, listen to positive audio books, watch a positive movie where they overcome and there's love. And, because they are skilled at putting you in hypnosis. That's what movie makers have been, learning their craft to do and to get you to suspend reality. So I can't get to a therapist. I can't get to the, you have all these tools. Just watch a positive movie. Just, every night, even if it's 5 pages, read a positive book. It's like magic. It's an unbelievable therapeutic tool that's right there in your hands, and you just got to think of it that way.
Yes, that's so good. It's and I was just thinking, if you're going to church, by the way, all of the churches, they put you in hypnosis as well. So make sure the church that you're going to is a positive church because,
positive message, and people don't realize, in a lot of situations that, so there's the concept, placebo, nocebo, okay? A placebo is any suggestion that makes you feel better. That's a placebo, whether it's a pill or a doctor pats you on the back or they give you a shot or someone says you look wonderful today. Those are placebos, and we take those in and it changes our brain chemistry to make us feel better. Well, if someone does something negative or says something negative, it changes your brain chemistry to make you feel worse. So when you're in a position of leadership and power, whatever, you have to ask yourself, these people are vulnerable. Am I giving them placebos or nocebos? And people don't stop to think about some of the things they're saying are nocebos. They're actually making people feel bad. So we have to, and that includes our loved ones, our kids. Sort of evaluate your communication. Is what I'm about to say going to make this person feel better, or is it going to make them feel worse? Because we're all hypnotists. We're all suggestible to each other. And so we have to sort of take that responsibility that our words are very powerful and we should be, considerate and thoughtful about what we're delivering and how it's changing the brain chemistry of the person we're talking to.
Oh, that's such good stuff. Yes.
Oh, right.
Right. Well, I want to put something in there I mean, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like you deserve a Nobel for that. But I want to put something in there for the HMI grads who would certainly be listening, and maybe the instructors too, because in HMI, one of the most brilliant concepts that your father and your uncle created is the ENP.
Relationship behavior model. Yes.
There you go. Yes.
Right. In other words, looking at romantic relationships and romantic personality. It's a basic personality profile, but we focus on romantic relationships, even though it generalizes into your work and all of your relationships, but it becomes very, very magnified in romantic relationships, and realizing that many people attract their opposites, and they don't know that because they look the same, they sound the same, they both like tennis, they both are Democrats, whatever it is, they look like a mirror image of you on one hand, but on a subconscious level, on a feeling level, behavior, they are opposites, and you don't know that going in, and you think, oh, we're exactly the same. And little by little, you find out that you are not the same, that you were really polarized in a lot of ways. And then you start to resent them for it, causes conflicts, rather than saying, well, this is what I'm attracted to. It's actually a good thing that we actually are stronger because we complement each other. When we're both exactly the same, you start to have conflicts, but it's nice to complement each other. But at first, that complementarity is perceived as a problem, and we start fighting against it. And that's the EMP model, which brings us to another free lesson, a free video on hypnosis.edu, and it's called testingmyrelationship.com. And it gives you a little test you and your partner can take. They don't see your answers, you don't see their answers, but you get this score, and you get to see how you complement each other. And it's another 2-hour free video, testingmyrelationship.com.
And everyone, whether they're a client or they are a friend, and they send them there and they watch the class, immediately I get texts. This is explaining my whole life.
Right. Because they don't teach us these things.
No.
I really feel like, we're a college of hypnotherapy. We're first accredited college in the United States. Teaching that teach in the 5th grade. Like, everybody should be taught this in elementary school, 5th, 6th grade. These are basic life lessons on how to live, how to understand behavior. It's nothing that should be limited to doctors or psychologists or, in anybody. This is all stuff that we should know, and we don't yet. It's not given to us at that level.
And you mentioned that, so it's the EMP, we kind of look at the romantic partnership, but you said it generalizes out into your life. So do you find that, I mean, I've noticed this in my life, that I'm a physical, my husband's an emotional, and so are like my best friends and partners. They're all emotionals. They tend to be. I mean, I have some physical, really close friends, but I don't, the people that are in a deeper partnership or a more consistent interaction, they're usually the polar opposite. Is that common?
Yeah, it generalizes into any relationship you have, right? And you're going to follow these patterns. And the idea is, whether it's a romantic partner or someone, you're talking to, I don't care if it's a person that you're doing a proposal with in a business situation. If you can see and spot their behavior and be able to know whether you're talking to an E or a P, it helps you understand what they're coming from, where they're coming from, what they need from you, how to communicate with them. And it's just such a powerful tool. There isn't anybody that I would interact with at any level, in a neighbor, a student coming in my office, a person that giving me a bit, that I'm not looking and going, I'm talking to a physical here. Let me make sure I remember that. And let me make sure that I give them the space that they need to say what they need to say, the way they need to say it. See, I want them to just shut up and tell me what I need, right? But no, they need to tell me in a different way because they're different than me. And I just got to accept that and just say, you know what, just give them a little bit more time. Make sure that you repeat certain things. If you're in the same room, if you can just touch them, that's magic to them, right? And all of that is just understanding who's sitting in front of me versus some other person who I go, boy, this person's blunt and rude, and go, no, that's the way they're communicating to me, and it's not personal, and this is a good thing, But if I don't understand it, anytime you don't understand anything, why someone's doing something, why they're acting this way, it's stressful. Like, oh my God, I don't understand. So the minute you can say, oh, well, this makes perfect sense based on their experience or their personality or what's happened to them, then you have much more empathy and understanding of, and it's not so stressful because you know why they're acting the way they're acting.
Do you feel like it's so easy for you to spot, like you're about 100 out of 100 spotting who's an E and who's a P?
Again, I always tell students this, yes, but I'm wrong sometimes because I'm missing information. And then when I get more information, I'm flexible enough to change my mind.
Yeah.
Because people are complex and they're not always easy to read. And unless you can really see them in their world interacting, you're missing information, and that's the problem in therapy. They come into our office and all we see them in is this artificial world in our office. If we could go home with them and see them interact in their family, then go, well, no wonder they have this problem. It makes perfect sense now because look at the environment. It's perfectly adaptive to this environment. And we would change our opinion about what's wrong with them almost every time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And with the E and P model, which is so phenomenal. So you could see in their family, how they're interacting with their partner or with their kids, and the kids tend to be the opposite, of the primary caregiver and everything, because that's a compatible relationship as well. And so the thing about that with the EMP is you may also be using your subdominant, or you could be using a defense, or you could be, I actually talked to my...
complicated,
Yeah.
So, for example, Susie, my wife's sister, right? She, we thought she was the opposite of my wife. Like we were always saying, wow, how can you be this way and your sister be the opposite? So opposite, you grew up, you're only a year and a half apart. And then when their mother was ill, we ended up staying at their house, at her sister's house, with her sister and her sister's husband for extended period of time, like for a month, right? That we had never spent that kind of time with them. And then we got to see them in the morning interacting. We got to see them late at night interacting. We got to see them having little tiffs here and there, or the way they watch TV. And all of a sudden we realized, no, Susie's sister is exactly the same as she is. Because we saw her with her husband and then we got more information. It wasn't just a dinner here and a dinner there. And then that additional information cleared up all doubt and it became more obvious to us. And that's just it. More information is always better,
I had a similar, you tell the story in the EMP class about how Susie, your wife, had thought that her mother was a physical when she's actually an emotional. And I remember you said that Susie was like, but she was a good mother.
Well, that's not part of the criteria, I know. Right. No, I know people get a little off track with it,
Well, I was the same when I was first learning about it, because I was like, well, my mother must be a physical, because I don't think she's that smart.
Like, well, wait a minute. We've got more physical presidents than emotional ones. So clearly they can be career oriented, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's not.
That's
so
not,
There's a little bit, that's the learning part where you start narrowing in on, well, what really makes someone a physical? What really makes someone an emotional? And that's what the lecture tries to focus on is not getting caught up in little things,
Right. Right. And then I realized after that, and I was like kind of really just looking at it, and also looking at the partnerships, looking at her with my dad, looking at her with,
we don't think of our parents as sexual creatures, right?
No.
Right. We don't want to think about that. But the fact is, you wouldn't be here if they weren't. So at some point they were romantic. They were a sexual couple. They have their own dynamics separate from being a mom and dad. And we never even look at it because it's not our business. We don't care. We don't like to think about it. But they were a romantic couple and are a romantic couple. And we have to step back and look at it objectively,
I actually, part of me sorting that out was looking at a photo of my parents when they were around 29, 30 years old. And it just seemed to scream out, like my dad was the physical, my mom was the emotional. Like you could just see it in their faces and their posture and the way they were. And that, I mean, it was a still, but it's still like you could see the interaction. And then, of course, after that, I realized every time my mom reaches out and we're talking or texting, she's like, work is going so great. And work. And it's like, oh, okay. That's the way that she's like sharing with me. It's a core trait for her. It's important to her. Yep. So
I was counseling somebody just recently, and he was so upset with his, new wife, and things weren't going well. But he's the physical, right? And I said, well, what's going on in her world? And, well, she's having problems with her citizenship. Her business has been shut down because of COVID. Everything that's important to her. Those aren't his main things. His main thing is just, hey, well, we're healthy, we're together. We could have sex, we could have company. Well, that's not her. That's not her main thing. I told him it's a little bit like blood flow. When those things are broken, all the blood flow is flowing to those things. None of it's going anywhere else. She's got nothing left. All those other things come when these things are settled, right? And he doesn't understand, well, why is that important? It's not that important. It's just money. It's just that. No, that's her world. That's her center of her universe. And you can't expect her to feel romantic while she's in a crisis. And that's a crisis for her, even though it's not a crisis for him.
She doesn't have anything. She doesn't have anything to give to a partnership because she feels incomplete in herself.
Yeah. Well, again, all the blood's rushing to the heart. Right. There's nothing left in the extremities,
Right. Well, this has been amazing. On the HMI website, there is this EMP class. It will change your life, change your perspective.
MyRelationship.com.
Yes. I'm going to put all the links for the things that we've talked about in the description and the show notes. So definitely go check that out. There's also the pro bono sessions. The interns that George is talking about, they are so qualified. I mean, so don't think
they're here to help. They're dedicating their lives to this, and it's you're gonna like them, and they're there to help you, and it's the fact that it's available in your home free. It's really pretty phenomenal.
It really is. And then, of course, if you are interested, they have new sessions starting every month. So it's really amazing.
The college is always there. Once you've watched a few classes like the mental bank or something, if you find that I want to learn more about this, then the website's right there and you can reach out to us.
Yeah. Well, George, this has been so great. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing, that your family's legacy, and you're carrying it on. And I'm just so blessed by HMI, by not just by the education, but by everything that you're doing. And I'm really happy to be able to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
You're helping us, and you're helping the community. And we're just so grateful that we have all these great people like you graduating and spreading the word and educating people. And of course, with your audience, you're doing it 10 times more than most people. So we appreciate you as well.
Thank you, George. And everyone now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake, and alert.
Wide awake.
How amazing was that? I mean, I just really had so much fun. George is just such a fountain of knowledge and help and support. And truly, I encourage you, why not? Why not? Go check out the pro bonos, the pro bono sessions that are available. You will gain so much from being able to work with one of the interns, one of the hypnosis professionals, because those people are already starting to take professional clients as well. Do check out the mental bank. Do check out the EMP seminar, the emotional and physical seminar, which is Test My Relationship. Anyway, there is so much more. I talked about it a lot in the conversation, but there's so much more there. There are classes that are available to the community on things like dream therapy and I think self-hypnosis. There's so much available. And you could just spend a lot of time there with all of these tools. I also mentioned Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Check that out. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please do like, subscribe, share, comment, and follow me on Instagram as well at Tricia Carr Charm. I'm going up live there, offering some split screen quick readings for folks that join me there. Click the bell on YouTube because I'm also doing live streams. You'll find on my YouTube channel doing some teaching, some free teaching, some of the stuff that I'm developing. Some things are channeled, intuitive guidance right there for those who join me on the feed. And with that, thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.